This is an interview with John Markshausen, conducted by Fritz Gonzalez in October of 2015 while driving around in Don's Ford Explorer. Now you want me to tell the story sequentially. Okay, well, as I was driving up like we are here, and as I approached the school, the squad car was in my mirror. And I thought I got caught speeding again, so I got stopped last week and I got a warning. I was late for a meeting, see? And I thought, geez. But then the cop car pulls off into the school to Don's right, and he sees about 100 kids jumping over the fence. And that's what Don said. And he said, quote, "This is goofy." The main image in my mind, over the corner coming up here on Bowles Avenue, there was a woman in a dress, very well dressed, with a telephone trying to reach her daughter. I I remember so clearly the frustration in her face, this image in my head. And then there's helicopters. This is probably 11:30 in the morning. And John runs into this doctor that he knows from his congregation, and he's like, hey, you're a doctor, I'm a pastor, let's keep going. But as he approached the school, he saw the principal running out with his staff, yelling, back, back. John said to the doctor again, you're a doctor, let's keep going, because he thought maybe they could help. But when they got to the school, he saw the policeman putting down a kid with a gun. That's when John said, quote, maybe not.
The sheriff was giving out all kinds of wrong information. 35 killed, 10 killed, nobody knew what was going on. The only thing the sheriff knew is something bad happened. That's when this other pastor, he ran into there and he says to Don,
You know they're all going to be pouring into our church tonight. We better get back to our churches.
so he went back to his church.
And what could we do? I didn't know. All we could do was sing hymns and do communion. To speak to what had happened was impossible because we didn't know.
As he's setting up the altar for communion, one of his kids, a member of the church, says, Pastor,
What?
Pastor,
What? I'm busy.
Pastor, I'm going to tell you what happened today.
What?
Sometimes when you're picked on and picked on and picked on, you strike back. And that's what happened today. And he walked away.
So people poured in, packed the place. Don still doesn't really know what's going on. He's just giving out communion, and he runs into this one guy that he just had breakfast with, and that guy says,
He says the name of the shooter.
and Don thinks it's his hero. Quote, what?
The man says the name of the shooter again.
And then the name comes into his head. They hadn't been to church in 6 or 8 months. They came for a short time, and then they stopped coming. Quote, how do you know this?
Because the police cars are all over their place.
You tell them if they need me, call me.
John kept going.
Body of Christ, body of Christ, body of Christ. That was Tuesday. And then on Thursday, John gets a call, well, from the father of the shooter.
Pastor, we need some help.
Yeah?
I need you to help me bury my son.
When and where?
Saturday.
And he gave me the name of the funeral home. My name is Snag. Don Markshausen was the former pastor of St. Philip Lutheran Church in Littleton, Colorado. I would not be born for another 8 months.
I want to begin by saying that Hillary and I are profoundly shocked and saddened by the tragedy today in Littleton, where 2 students opened fire on their classmates before apparently turning their guns on themselves. I have spoken with Governor Bill Owens and County Commission Chair Patricia Holloway and expressed my profound concern for the people of Littleton. I think that Patricia Holloway would not mind if I said that amidst all the turmoil and grief that she and others are experiencing, she said to me just a moment ago that perhaps now America would wake up to the dimensions of this challenge if it could happen in a place like Littleton, and we could prevent anything like this from happening again. We pray that she is right. We don't know yet all the hows or whys of this tragedy. Perhaps we may never fully understand it. St. Paul reminds us that we all see things in this life through a glass darkly, that we only partly understand what is happening. We do know that we must do more to reach out to our children and teach them to express their anger and to resolve their conflicts with words, not weapons. And we do know we have to do more to recognize the early warning signs that are sent before children act violently. To the families who have lost their loved ones, to the parents who have lost their beloved children, to the wounded children and their families, to the people of the community of Littleton.
This is an interview with Christina Anderson, conducted over Skype. I remember waking up in the hospital and I had stitches down my stomach and my parents were in the room and I was under heavy medication. I didn't fully understand what had happened yet, either to myself or to my body or to my classmates. I remember waking up in the hospital and I had stitches down my stomach and my parents were in the room and I was under heavy medication. I didn't fully understand what had happened yet, either to myself or to my body or to my classmates. I was shot twice in the head and then once in my right toe. That was a ricochet bullet. So you're trying to regain consciousness of the world and figure out how you're taken from a classroom to this sterile, small ICU room. And I remember in the corner of the room, there's this little TV. And I recognized myself because I'm wearing these blue shoes. And I asked, why am I on TV? And I remember my parents gave me this surprised look like, oh, she doesn't know. She doesn't yet understand the totality and the severity of what's happened. So I was just surprised. And then I pretty seriously asked that the TV be turned off, like instantly. Afterwards, I received cards, flowers, handmade pictures, even from my old middle school in Moscow, Russia. I didn't really go through a lot of this stuff. I was pretty heavily out of it. My parents would collect it and put it aside, but once I was able to get home and have more control over my days, I went through the stuff because there was just boxes and boxes of things.
We send our condolences to your school, family, and community. We will never forget the students and teachers.
I responded to some of them because some people sent checks, and the people that I knew, I did write back to say thank you.
I'm here for you. I know that it might be hard to go on, but just know that we're thinking of you and that you're in our prayers.
I think these handwritten cards are definitely more meaningful than just thoughts and prayers and tweets and social media connections. But the sending of a card or flowers or whatever, that's really more for the sender than it is the receiver, especially if you don't know the person. The reality is that all those cards, all those flowers, they become a huge burden. People love to collect them, sort through them, create space for them. I think there is a space and there's a validity in the grief ritual sense of it, because it helps the person connect to something that's so foreign, that they're so far apart from. But it's like when you become a survivor, people start to come up to you and tell you about their experience that day and where they were. And it's just, I'm still going through my thing over here. I'm still trying to breathe. My name is Emma. Christina Anderson is a graduate of Virginia Tech. I was 5 years and 7 months old.
Our prayers are with you in this difficult time. Our hearts go out to you and your families. You're going to be stronger than you were before. You just have to keep your heads up. These times may be bad, but you still have your memories of them to hold on to. And just remember that they're in a better place.
To Virginia Tech students, I'm so sorry what happened to your friends or your family who were killed in the incident. I'm sorry that happened. You must have been sick. I will pray for the people who died at Virginia Tech.
Dear Virginia Tech friend, I have heard about what happened and I'm writing this letter because I care.
The 50 stars on the flag on the front stand for all 50 states, and they're all together, which means that we're all a family and should be there for each other when we need them. I am here for you.
You're going through a lot that you don't deserve. It happened though, and it might be hard to move on, but I know you can get through it. Just think of happy things like flowers and maybe just cuddle in your bedroom and need some time alone. Just know that I'm thinking of you and that you're in my prayers. With love, Kelly. P.S. I admire you for being so brave.
The day of the shooting, I was at work, and I began hearing initial reports from the news media about something happening. And I was trying to contact my daughter, Mary, in every way that I could, and I couldn't get a hold of her. I had the most horrible feeling that something was wrong. I was here all afternoon trying to get in contact with people, trying to get out any information I could. And finally, I decided I needed to go down there. The whole time driving down there, I didn't know anything. I didn't know if she was one of those killed or wounded, or if she was in an evacuation process somewhere and had lost her phone. It had been hours, hours, hours. I didn't know until maybe 9:30 at night. My wife had called me and told me the state police had come to the door here. It was so cool.
In our theology, Christ goes where it started. We suffer together for each other. And it might be hard to understand. I've been at it for years, and I'm just now starting to get it. Do you know the name William James? Psychologist. 5, maybe. Brilliant. True religion is the dark soul. Faces death. If the Indians say go towards the fire, not away from it. Like I say, Jesus goes where it's darkest. William James says, the dark soul understands that we're going to die. Doesn't run from death. Hide from it. Suffering trains you. Pain brings you back to your center. Pain is a gift.
It's hard to comprehend the magnitude of it if you haven't lived through it. It's qualitatively different than losing a parent or a family member in the normal course of life. We all know that we're mortal and that we're going to die someday. So when you lose a parent, you lose a family member, you lose a loved one. At the time, maybe you think that's supposed to happen. It's sad and painful and you grieve, but it's not unexpected. But when you have a child or a young adult like Mary was, who is deliberately taken, that's not loss. She's taken from you by another person in a violent act. You cannot comprehend the impact that loss had on everyone around me.
My name is Eilish, and that was Peter Reed, whose daughter Mary Reed was killed in the Virginia Tech shooting. I was 8 years and 2 months old.
President and Mrs. Bush, of course, everyone is thinking about these families today and the terrible news that they have inevitably received about their children. You just met with some of the families. How was that meeting? How were you able to offer some comfort?
I cried when they wanted to cry. I hugged when they wanted to hug. We just loved them as best as we could. And that's all you can do.
As you well know, after events like this, discussions about gun control inevitably follow.
Sure.
I know that every year some 4.5 million firearms are sold in this country. There are over 10,000 homicides. Is it too easy, in your view, for unstable people to purchase guns in this country?
On the gun control debate, and there's inevitably going to be a debate, as there should be after an incident like this. I think now, my own view is that I haven't had time to reflect, nor do I know all the facts on what took place. I do know now's the time to help heal these hearts. And with ample time for the debates that follow, my hope is that the country puts people in prayer. Not only those who've lost their lives, who've lost a loved one, but the kids here really need prayer. I mean, there's a lot of people that are deeply troubled, and you and I and Laura are just.
March 21st, 2005. It was a normal day, like another. My mom bitched me out, as usual. Yeah, I was at my worst that day. I was out to fuck the world and everything in it. But I guess maybe I was just an average 14-year-old, I don't know. Anyway, here's the truth. It was time to go to 8th hour, and there was a substitute teacher there. And I had asked her if I could play some White Zombie on a CD player that was in the classroom. And during the first song, me and a good friend of mine had heard some gunshots. I know a 12-gauge right there, and he immediately jumped up and ran for the door. Our curiosity had gotten the best of us. And the gunman had pulled his gun on us really quick, and I had just stood there like a dumb buck, and I felt the bullet hit me before I even heard the gunshot. I guess that's just how fast bullets fly through the air, and I thought that I was hit by like a rubber bullet or something because I hadn't started to bleed right away, but I guess I'd seen too much Hollywood films. Ha, ha, ha. But I had started to go into shock, and I heard this like distant voice say to me, "You're gonna make it, Ryan." And I was instantly motivated to persevere through this physical hell that I was experiencing. And an ambulance came to my name. They immediately rushed me to the emergency room, in which my mother works right down the hall. So I'd ask the doctor so that I could grab her, so I could have a few words. I was thinking about how I've been treating her the past few years, and if I were to die on that bloody day, this is what I'd say. Mother, I'm sorry for being such an asshole to you. I love you, Mom, but now your baby boy has to die. See you when the Lord calls you home. But it didn't happen like that. No, I was told I lived through it, and I remember my mom came in and she held my hand and cried, and I started telling some jokes. But no one laughed. At least I tried to lift the spirits of those who were at my side. I just laughed and smiled.
My name is Jimmy, and I was 3 years and 7 months old. This is a school essay written by Ryan Augenach of the Red Lake Nation.
One of my nephews was shot. He's still some shrapnel in his right lung. Ryan August.
Okay, my name is Catherine Jody Bolio, but my spiritual name, my Indian name, given to me when I was really young is Makadewi Balawi Kwe, which means black standing woman. The whole thing about our people, we were like the fawn of the earth, something to be studied, something to be caught up, to be civilized. But yet they felt that they had the liberty to come and do whatever they wanted with our people, to our people, and then leave us. That's why I was so reluctant to participate in this, because there's a song by back in the day in the 60s by Phil Western. Here comes the answer that Roger passed away. Here comes the answer on the other holidays. But I think the crux of the whole matter is that we don't want to be defined by this tragedy. We want the world to know that we're a closed reservation and we stood our ground against the most powerful military government in the world. And we're still standing, even after this tragedy. That's what the crux of the matter is. We want to be remembered, but we don't want to be defined by this tragedy. But there has been some ceremonies to help deal. Well, in our way, it's not the ceremonies were never written down. There is a lot of meaning and a lot of sacredness to what we do and why we do it. I hesitate to say anything about our ceremonies as little or as much as I know. Because if you think about the Christian faith, and then you think about the Bible, and everything in the Bible is written down, and it lacks the spirit of the voice. And where our ways were not written down, but we carry them through our bodies, through our voice, and it keeps a life within it. And it's not something that's dead, like a Bible or a written book. And that's the same with our own history. And it's important to keep the breath in it, to keep it alive.
I'm sorry. I didn't realize that. This is Ryan Augenach, interviewed 13 years after the shooting. In his own words.
Right here, 12 gates, and that's a 12 gates, and we shoot up the school, and about 12 gates, my heels, I felt that close, I came before I that shot. It was all in denial, I just kind of thought like, they're about to pull or something. And shed one tear until next day when I woke up. Seen the news, seen everybody who got killed, that's when I finally shed my tears. Yeah, I all that. I started drinking, and in jail, drink like, not like every day, or I wasn't like kind of be dependent or anything.
Yeah.
After that, I was for reaching for a bottle. Didn't feel nothing. Didn't feel no emotion. Just much other hurt and stuff. So I just eat drugs, so I don't feel shit. Got to a point there, I don't know if anybody asked me anything. Let's talk about all that. So right now I'm better actually. So getting hunting and fishing more. Felt good, managed to have a gun on me. Get up there, peace. There's nobody else up there with you. These animals and.
Violence itself takes a different view to each person that looks at it. I mean, whole societies have justified violence for greater causes. And I think that almost every act of violence that seems senseless to everyone has been justified, at least to the perpetrator in some way. So understanding that, getting clarity on that may be a fool's errand.
Curtis Clark is the former editor of the Newtown Week in Newtown, Connecticut. I was in 6th grade.
I was in 5th grade.
I was in 5th grade.
I was in 5th grade.
Journalists are supposed to be dispassionate. You're not really supposed to join in with the people or the event or what you're reporting on. Of course, in a situation like this, it's almost impossible to do. I don't know where you were at that moment, but it had a visceral effect on me. And that's not really knowing the people involved, not really seeing the actual grief of community. For us working here, trying to set up a distance, that kind of keeping the emotions of it at arm's length was futile. I really don't want to discuss my own mental health with you. It's just deal with it. And there are things that really help. And the one thing that helps a staff under duress like that is knowing that you have a job. We were still being exacting about facts and getting things right and not writing over emotionally, but we had a community to serve who was stressed, frustrated, confused, looking for hope. And a lot of that frustration, actually, a lot of the impediments to healing and finding some kind of resilience comes from not understanding why. And people get stuck there. That Thursday, I got a call from the father of the shooter. Sir, we need some help. Yeah? I need you to help me bury my son. When and where? Got it. Gave me the name of the funeral home. I remember the day of the funeral that was gathered. It was probably 16 or 17 people. The mother and father, her other son. 8 or 9 other people. They were really close couples, really trusted. I remember the opening words are from the father. And he says, "Who the hell gave a gun to my kid? We don't believe in guns. Who gave a gun to my son?" So this other father there, he says,
Your son played in our house, wrestled with our son. We loved it.
this one family, they knew them in Ohio. And they say, "We just thought you were the neatest family in the world. I mean, we moved here to be closer to you." So it was that kind of testimony. Like opposite of what had happened. So here's this body of this son. It's just killed a whole bunch of people. And here's all this evidence.
From Andres Gonzalez's interview with Ryan Ogdenach.
Did you hear any of the funerals afterwards?
And it's like,
Did you go to the funeral of the shooter?
We did? So, how did you feel about that? What did you want to do with that?
you know, forgiveness. I carry that burden on. Gosh, it's carry. I don't carry that on.
You asked me about forgiveness? The day of Mary's funeral, her little brother Brendan, who was maybe 3 at the time, found a little red book with quotations and sayings that Mary had been jotting down. The last entries were a whole page full of quotes on forgiveness. She She started copying down quotes in 2004, things that were important. I don't know where she had gotten them from. I don't know, but something happened to her in her life that made it important for her to talk about, or for her to think about and write them down. And I had been struggling about whether I should say anything at the funeral, but when Brendan handed me that book that morning, I didn't say. I just shared Mary's message with everybody there.
Forgiveness
Forgiveness
means letting go of the past. Forgiving is not forgetting, it's letting go of the hurt. It takes a strong person to say sorry, and an even stronger person to forgive. To forgive is the highest, most beautiful form.
of love. In return, you will receive untold peace and happiness.
The weak can never forgive.
Forgiveness is the
The attribute of the strong. When a deep injury is done us, we never recover until we forgive. Forgiveness does not change the past, but it does enlarge the future. I never said it was easy. Nobody ever said forgiveness was easy, but when you ask me about forgiveness, I'm going to say my answer is what Mary's answer is.
You know, stuff came in for the shooter. Anything that came in for him went directly to his family's estate. We did not document it.
This is Yola Moreno, a resident of Newtown, Connecticut.
When you walk into the Newtown Municipal Center, there's this long corridor with offices off to the side, and the walls were covered. I mean, floor to ceiling with banners and quilts and artwork, and table after table of mail bins filled with letters. My first instinct was to document it. See, I went to film school, and I've always been the preservationist of my family, scanning photos, putting Super 8 films on DVD, you know, that sort of thing. And so I posted. I was like, you will not believe what's going on in this town. I need volunteers. I need anyone who's got a camera, anyone who's willing to come. And I just want to take a picture of every single thing. I don't know what it's going to do, how we're going to do it, how we're going to manage it, just as long as we capture it. And so we started. I would take a tray of stuff and I would kneel down on the ground. And I would take these really crappy photos. I ended up with something like 20,000 images. And I had a whole team of volunteers and we had to sort through all of it. I also helped manage the stuff that was coming in for the families. And I mean, boxes and boxes. Day in, day out, people were sending stuff. Stuff would come in, be brought to the basement, be put in a box, and when that was full, it would be brought over to the family's house. There were so many portraits. People sent beautiful drawings and paintings of their children. We wanted to read everything. We even sent people thank you notes because we feel responsible to let people know that it was touched, it was held, it was opened, you know?
Yeah, the archives is very important to us. We do have still in the archives, the candles.
Jody Bolio was an archivist too, for the Redland Nation.
But you see, it's a very sensitive topic. I mean, it's gonna be written, it's in our hearts forever. I mean, it's not like objects are the thing, ceremonies are the thing.
People were desperate to let the victims know that they cared, that they were thinking of them, but after a certain number of months, it's just overwhelming. All the memorials on the street, all the teddy bears that have been soaking in the rain and snow for weeks, the candles, the flowers, everything was crusted and dying. People sent in over 65,000 stuffed animals. What on earth do you do with it? These people are grieving, and the last thing that they're gonna wanna do is go through all of this stuff.
That's like the catch-22 of museums that collected all these years, you know? And they were never collecting for our sake, they were collecting because they value material objects.
And there was so much religious stuff. And I was just like, nope, nope, nope. They're not in a better place. Nope. I don't care if Jesus loves you. I'm not documenting that.
Because even the things that are earth by museums, they're all natural objects. They are meant to go back to the earth.
When I asked what they planned on doing with everything, they said it was going to get burned, incinerated, and I couldn't believe it.
When someone passes away in our family, we burn all the belongings. Because if you keep them, it's like holding them back, their spirit is in there.
I had to document it all before it disappeared.
It's like a letting go, don't hold them back. That sorrow holds them back.
From the website knowyourmeme.com.
R9K is a forum on the image board site 4chan dedicated to anonymous sharing of personal anecdotes. The board is famous for its stories of social awkwardness, as well as its discussions of abnormal social behavior.
Along with Pepe the Frog memes, self-proclaimed robots and betas can anonymously share their contempt for normies and chads, and are often referred to by non-R9K users as incels.
On October 1st, 2015 at 1:19 a.m., the following conversation began and proceeded up until a gunman opened fire at Umpqua Community College in Roseburg, Oregon.
Some of you guys are all right. Don't go to school tomorrow if you're in the Northwest. So long, space robots.
Is the beta uprising finally going down?
Seattle or Portland, I'll be watching the news.
Do it.
I suggest you enter a classroom and make everyone get to one corner of the room and then open fire.
Make sure there is no way for someone to disarm you.
It takes a great man to do great things, become legendary.
Godspeed, OP.
This is Andres' interview with Julie Woodworth, July 2017, at her home in Roseburg, Oregon. I know you've been going through a really long recovery, and I was wondering if you could tell me what happened and what your recovery has been like. I was shot in the head. All 4 limbs. I think that's it. You were in the writing and composition class? Yeah.
I would suggest a powerful assault rifle and a pistol.
Thanks, fam. Keep me in your prayers.
Why don't you just talk to a girl instead, you beta fuck?
So I know you've been having some issues with your memory. Yeah. Were you in a coma? I was in a coma for 2 weeks. About. What were the first things you remember after you woke up?
October 13th, 2015. I started this Facebook page to keep everyone up to date on what Julie is doing with her recovery.
I don't know, honestly.
Julie has her eyes open and has started to focus on people's faces.
Do you remember that day? No.
Hope you get a high score. Thanks for the warning.
Kill them all for us.
Bits and pieces. Do you remember being in the hospital? Yeah. How long were you in the hospital? About 4 months.
Julie has transferred out of ICU. It will be a long road to recovery, but we are so thankful for all of your support.
Maybe 5, give or take. What do you remember about being in the hospital? My medicine list has like shrunken down quite a bit.
It was a good day. Julie was able to answer yes and no questions by pointing to the words.
Do you remember yesterday, or is yesterday hard to remember?
She is still not able to speak yet, but getting closer.
I remember yesterday. And when I was little.
Julie is now using a whiteboard to answer questions by pointing at different pictures.
It's all a blur, kind of.
October 3rd, 2016. Julie Whitworth writes her very first Facebook post. Hello, everyone.
God bless you, Julie.
I've been praying for you for a long time.
You inspire me to be a better person.
God bless you. You may not know me, but I did say hi when we passed each other. And I saw you posted the other day that now you have most of your memories back.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel like you want to remember that day?
I don't want to think about it. I'm kind of glad I don't remember.
One of these days, this will be real. This could be it.
Can I join you in the Beta uprising? I'm in Michigan.
You're only shooting college-age students, right? I have grandparents that live up there.
Do you ever write?
Yeah. I keep a journal. I have some poetry.
And I see from Facebook that you're painting now. Immediately after the Umpqua Community College shooting, 4chan users captured images of the online hate threat, and it is now easily searchable across the internet. Xerox approached me and asked if I planned to recall the images. I didn't really know, so they helped me manage the files and build a website.
Someone made a video encompassing some of Mary's quotes on forgiveness. You can look up the message from Mary Reed on YouTube. It's still rippling out there.
The two Columbine shooters left behind journals and videotapes detailing their motivations and plans for the attack on April 20th, 1999. The Jefferson County Sheriff's Department says the videos were destroyed in 2015. However, some material was leaked, digitized, and is available online to this day.
Everything was incinerated in October of 2013. I drove my truck back and forth, back and forth. You just can't fathom how much stuff there was. Do you believe in energies? Because sometimes I believe there is a darkness.
The Columbine High School library, where 10 students died, was replaced by a glass atrium. The new library was built in 2002.
A $1 million renovation transformed the second floor classroom wing of Norris Hall, where the Virginia Tech shooting occurred. A total of $4.25 million was allocated to demolish and rebuild Snyder Hall at Umpqua Community College, where 9 people died in the shooting.
Broward County School District received $25 million to demolish building 12 of Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. The open space will be used for a memorial.
Newtown received $15 million to demolish Sandy Hook Elementary's old brick structure and rebuild the school. The new school was designed to reflect the quiet wooded landscape of the surrounding area. They demolished the shooter's house too. You know, the city bought the house and now it's demolished. I knew someone who lived next door and I'm sorry. I'd either be moving or I'd want that house gone too.
There's this gaping wound, this hole where Mary should be.
Because that house is just a house, but it's not. It's a place of sadness and despair.
There's a hole that's shaped like Mary, ripped into the fabric of her friendships, family, and community. And it goes on, forward in time indefinitely, and everything changes because it has to rearrange from that into place.
You know, the funny thing is it all burned down to fit into a box that isn't even that big.
You learn ways to live around it, and the edges soften. But it doesn't go away.
It all burned down to fit into a 3 by 3 by 3 box.
And it's not ever going to be any different until the day I die.
I took a little. I had these little glass vials and I put a little ash in them. We call it sacred soil.
Every family never met their loved one would be taken from our lives by the Lord. Every time I think about those kids, they miss me, man. By the way, it happens on the streets of Chicago.
Everyone steps up and says the right things, and nothing happens.
Jeff Foster teaches AP Government at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School.
In my class, we were literally talking about the NRA the day the shooting happened. The NRA is one of three main interest groups I was focused on. It's easy to talk about with this group because I've mentioned Newtown, I've mentioned Columbine, and I say, this stuff happens to children. And every politician comes out and says, we're gonna stop this, we're gonna pass laws, and then the NRA sits back in DC, capital cities, and just allows the rhetoric to happen. And then the second that any kind of bill comes to being born, they go to work, and these things die immediately.
That's when I started getting into the topic of gun violence, educating myself on what's going on.
Alicia Rodriguez is a student at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas.
There's obviously something wrong. I'm not the only person who has experienced something like this. Columbine, Sandy Hook, Pulse, Las Vegas, people in Chicago and Baltimore. It's the common voice I was now a part of.
I've actually said many times to my colleagues, to my good friends in school, that I thought we could be a target for a mass shooting because we were very similar to Columbine demographically. Exactly the same.
We moved here from Venezuela for a better life. We moved for a better future. Now, Parkland is very safe, very quiet, very controlled. And that's one of the things that left me speechless on February 14th. The fact that we moved here for safety. Now, I brought my camera that day because I wanted to make a Valentine's Day vlog. I just wanted to highlight all the beautiful gifts, all the hearts, the balloons, and the moments we were sharing with our friends. But around 2:20 p.m. though, it wasn't a Valentine's Day vlog anymore. My friend Sebastian pulls out Twitter. He's like,
Guys, we're trending. Like, there's a live stream?
and when we saw that, I grabbed my camera and I was like, guys, there's a shooter on campus. And I don't know what to do. We're scared. We hope nobody gets hurt. We hope our friends are okay. If anyone finds this, please upload it. And then we started praying. We prayed in English and we prayed in Spanish.
It's either Sunday night or Monday. It was Cameron Caskey, X Gonzalez, David Hogg, Jackie Corn, Chris Grady. They got together for a purpose, to organize this hashtag Never Again movement.
I was talking to the Never Again group, but I didn't know them well.
It was all about organizing for our lives. My end was getting the buses for free, getting the airplanes for free. Delta gave us, I think it was 3 planes. Kesha's mom called me, the singer, and she's like, Macklemore, my daughter want to make a song with your kids. She felt like this was happening all the time.
Well, there are more than 3,000 students at Douglas, and they're not given the chance to speak because the media was so focused on the Never Again kids. And I know a lot of people had mixed emotions about them. But through the conversations with many of my friends, we realized that we wanted a voice. We wanted to speak out. Going to DC, to the March for Our Lives, gave me all these opportunities to talk to people about what it means to represent Latinos in all of this. I met Paola Ramos, the daughter of Jorge Ramos. She set me up with a social media specialist, a graphic designer, and then on April 2nd, we launched #StoriesUntold. It just took off.
It's kind of cool that to preface everything by saying it sucks that this happened. But it is kind of cool to see your students in our state now trying to set the bar and change the law, hopefully for eternity.
I used to make happy vlogs. Having to go to my friend's funeral, having to see people my age pass away. We're just kids.
On February 14th, 2018, I was 18 years old.
I was 18 years old. I was 18 years old.
I was 16 years old.
I was 16 years old. I was 16 years old. I was 17 years old.
We are going to start here with the March for Our Lives. And here's the big question this morning after. What next? After all the dramatic speeches by the young survivors of gun violence, after all the celebrity appearances, after all the marches across the country and the world, can this movement produce any real change? They're calling this the largest youth-led protest since the beginning.
Christina Anderson. I started the Koshka Foundation with those first checks people sent. At Koshka, we find and translate survivor stories that are meaningful but also educational, helping law enforcement, teachers, and students to be better informed about their safety and their security. You know, people so rarely get to hear from the people who have experienced these events. Peter Reed.
I'm gonna go down to Richmond tomorrow and I'm gonna go face that cast from Deliverance who are very concerned about their gun rights. And I'm going to explain yet again why I'm concerned that the wrong people shouldn't get their hands on those guns.
Jody Bolio.
All right, if I want to, just trying to bring peace to the people who were directly affected as much as I could in any way I could. Like the teachers who were directly affected and the families of the students who were directly affected needed to get together and have a way of sharing what happened during that time, whether you were right on the front line.
Yoli Moreno.
My project was about love, and that was it. I was just thinking of the kids who were still little, who couldn't read yet, weren't going to remember much. And when they're processing this, like their whole lives, they would have a place where they could go or where any of the parents could go in their darkest hour and just read amazing, caring letters and see beautiful artwork, things that could help them through that time.
In all honesty, I don't think my grieving is over. And I don't think it will be for quite some time. I just try to distract myself through the videos. It's the one thing that keeps my motivation going, keeps me moving forward. I'm still trying to find my purpose and what I meant to do here, I guess. I pray for clarity a lot, but I know I'm not going to be able to see what's going to happen next, so I pray upon what will happen next.
We'd like to leave you tonight with the words of Peter Reed.
What do you hope this book would say to a larger audience?
That all the lives that were taken mattered, that they had consequence, they had purpose. And that these are real flesh and blood human beings. They're not abstractions, and they're not stories, and they're not pictures. Those are representations of the real person and the real people. So even though you're not focusing on any one individual, every one of them involved in what the story you're telling was an individual. That's what I want people to feel and hear.
And he puts his hand over his heart.
You can actually end over here, but I want them to feel that.
Inside my grave, I know that you will need it. I take prescriptions to make me feel okay. I know it's all in my head. I have these illusions,
Good afternoon, family. Yes, I said family. I said family because we are here joined together in unity fighting for the same goals. I said family
because all the pain that I see in the crowd, and that pain, us hurting together, brings us closer to fight for something better. My name is Alex King. I'm 17. I'm a North Lawndale College Prep senior, as well as a peace warrior and a leader with Good Kids Mad City. Chicago has been at the forefront of gun violence for a very long time, but gun violence travels nationwide. My nephew Deshaun was taken away 2 weeks after his 16th birthday. Started to do a lot of bad things, hanging around a bad crowd. Started to really give up.
But there's this principle by Dr. King, and it states, the beloved community is the framework for the future. And what this means is how our community is now is how our community will be affected in the future. If we don't change, if we aren't acting like a family now, making change, our communities will continue to be affected by gun violence. To my friends and colleagues, I was able to find help to come up out of a dark place. But we are also realizing that without the proper resources, this issue of gun violence will not be solved. And we will not stop until we are properly resourced in our communities. So family, let's continue to fight. And since we're family now, I would like to pass on a North Lawndale College prep tradition. This African clap that we do that shows unity and strength. You think we can do it?
Yeah.
Okay, so first I would say one. That's just a simple clap, and it sounds like this. 1, 1, 1, 1. Okay. Now, when I say 4, that's 2 sets of 2. So when I say 4, it sounds like this. 4, 4. Okay, now here's the tricky part. Now when I say 10, that's 2 sets of 3, then 2 sets of 2. So when I say 10, it sounds like this. 10, 10. You think we can do it as a family? Yeah. Here we go. 1, 1, 1, 1, 4, 4, 10, 10. I love y'all.
The work I do. I don't just talk to politicians. No, I'm also an organizer. I organize mutual aid, things like free groceries, food, do things like this kickback for kids.
Thank you for being our guest at Here Too. We've created this play from speeches, research, and interviews with young activists from Chicago and around the country.
This is Reina. When we talked with her over Zoom, she was at the party. Kids kept getting her attention. Hey, babe! Yeah. Go find Carleo! He's got the snacks. Okay. All right. Sorry.
It's a tricky thing standing in for someone sharing their stories.
We asked Reina how she felt about actors saying her words.
As long as you represent my work, I do not care who plays me. Showing people what's going on in Chicago, that we literally are living in a war zone. My brother, he was killed by a bullet. His name was Xavier. He was 17 years old. And then my other brother, he was racially profiled by a cop and practically beaten in front of me. And because of that, I got into organizing. And when the George Floyd protest happened, I was always out there. That's when I see these people that like proclaim themselves as good kids, Max City, and so much fire they have, how much anger, how willing they are to put the work in, willing they are to fight. And those are the type of people I want to be around. That's who I inspired me. Hi, babe. Show in there. Well, that's the bubble solution, or the bubbles. You need one with the so Carleo, to get you one with the bubble wine. But I really do thank God every day that I had a chance to meet Carleo, Kofi, Taylor, and Miracle, and all of them, because before I was doing the same thing 13-year-old Adam Toledo was. I was in foster care, I was running the streets. But I had a chance to make it out of that. I got to make it to 17, he never had that chance. I'm gonna send you a video of my big visual for Adam right now. Carleo, he got me a job. He made sure I knew I wasn't the bad child, the broken child that everybody wanted me to believe I was. Because we're all good kids. It's just a mad-ass city.
and friends of mine, Isaiah and Angel, also held a vigil for Adam Toledo and Dante Wright over the summer of 2021. In case our audience doesn't remember, can you tell us who Adam Toledo and Dante Wright were and what happened to them?
It was a little village where Adam Toledo was gunned down.
He was a 13-year-old boy.
It was the middle of the night. He ran away from the officer because he was scared, of course, the way black and brown folks are for police. His hands were raised, even though he was unarmed at the time. The officer still shot him. And then with Dante Wright in Minnesota,
I remember I had just gotten news about the verdict for the Derek Chauvin case for the killing of George Floyd and being like, oh, look at this victory that we got. And then immediately after, we hear about this, another death.
Dante tried to get away from the police as well because harassment to just fear of uncertainty. The officer pulled out a taser, or she said it was a taser, and then shot him.
And I just remember being so angry in the fact of like, Black and brown people, oppressed people just simply cannot get a win, or we simply just cannot be.
We learned to honor those lives. Honestly, if we were honoring every life that was killed by the police, we'd be having a vigil every day. But we were like, it'd be nice to hold space.
I texted Isaiah and said, I want to do something, and they said,
yeah, we should do something.
So I put together a little Canva art thing and we posted it, blasted it everywhere.
I made a Facebook group and then I went on this app called Nextdoor, which is basically a community Facebook essentially. I think we had about 30 people come out.
We bought candles, we printed out pictures, and we went to the park.
First thing I did notice when I got there was a cop car filled with about 4 officers. There's another one across the street.
What went through your head when you saw the police were there?
Same thing that goes through my head every time I see the police. Will they stop me? Even though I am innocent, what if they stop me, ask me where I'm going, and I say something they don't like? How will this end? If I was to get arrested, do I have phone numbers memorized? I'll usually have a pen on me and I'll write a number on my arm, maybe like Angel or someone else is close to me in Chicago. That way, if I work at my phone taken away, I have a few numbers jotted down. So all that runs through our head every time we see the police.
CPD makes me so irritated. Adam Toledo was just a baby. I just want to make sure that it said out loud. Adam Toledo was just a baby and was gunned down by CPD, the people whom he was taught were going to protect his life. You see this 13-year-old boy doing something sketchy, your first instinct is to take a gun out?
A lot of people that I know wanted to just come to the vigil and just pay respects.
And that's the comfort in it. It doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be this big presentation. It just needs to be there.
And emotion was definitely there for hold space and to honor and to just have a moment of silence. The line's lost at police violence.
People like to say that these people, they're a sacrifice. I hate that fucking word to describe the deaths of Black and brown people, of LGBTQ+ people. Like people say, thank you for your sacrifices. This was not a sacrifice. They did not come up out of their mouth and say they want to lose their life. Somebody took it from them. But with community, it's just nice to know that we commonly are hurting. And I guess like the way to heal is through each other and helping each other and uplifting each other to create the change we want to see. It's taken a lot of therapy to be able to talk about this, but basically when I was 15, my mom learned to Macy's to get a homecoming dress.
This is Maggie from Bellingham, Washington.
I found this dress that I really liked, but it wouldn't work. So we went up to a sales rep and said, hey, I like this dress, but is it possible to find one with a functional zipper? And she said,
oh yeah, totally. It'll just take 10 minutes.
The significance of those words, it'll just take 10 minutes. It's just so, I couldn't imagine what would happen to me in those 10 minutes. Less than 10 minutes, really.
9.
I heard this really loud, like, popping sound, and I turned around, and there's this man, like, running through the aisle. I see that he has a gun.
8.
I thought he was shooting like a t-shirt cannon or something, but it was pointed at someone and he was shooting.
7.
At that point, I somehow ended up ducking behind a clothing rack. How I got there is kind of a blur.
6.
And then my mom was beside me. She was probably like this close, like a foot or two. And I just remember thinking, like, I've seen this on TV and in movies, and I know what this is, and I'm gonna die because people die in these situations, you know? That's where my brain went.
4.
Done.
3.
And I was just like preparing for, you know,
2.
being shot.
1.
He didn't see us. He ended up running past us. Well, he didn't, but he just happened to go from the other way. There were a lot of shootings between that day and Parkland in 2018. There was none. Even with Parkland, I still felt numb. But my dad watching the news telling me,
Wow, those Parkland kids are actually standing up.
and it's kind of cool. And I'm kind of changing how I look at it. Like, maybe we don't have to just be complicit with what's happening.
I don't remember where I heard about the high school walkouts. It's kind of everywhere after Parkland.
It was the Women's March Youth Power Team that put out the call. A national school walkout March 14th, 2018.
In Dave Collins' book, Parkland, Jackie Corin of March for Our Lives talks about her math teacher's shitty attitude.
Who's walking out today? I'm happy you don't know why you're walking out.
I know why I'm walking out.
Why, Jackie?
Lack of gun legislation?
Do you even know current gun legislation?
Actually, I do.
This walkout won't accomplish anything. Y'all are just doing it to get out of class.
The walkouts are a statement. People have been protesting for centuries. Look at Selma. Look at Little Rock 9. He made a statement and he made history.
He's just stuck in his own world.
In our world, there were 95 mass shooting incidents in K through 12 schools in 2018. 55 students were killed.
But almost 1 million students in 3,000 schools across the country took part in the mass walkouts to protest gun violence, including Naomi from Virginia,
Carly from Oaks, California,
Annabelle, Evanston, Illinois.
Monica and Sarah from upstate New York, Maria from New Jersey,
Alexis from Oregon.
Raina, Chicago.
Brian, Pennsylvania.
And Maggie from Bellingham, Washington. On Instagram, I would post our local walkout, and 30 kids from my school district, most of which I didn't even know, I just invited over to my house, which was kind of weird. Like, hey mom, hey dad, can I have like 30 high schoolers come over? Within 48 hours, our group, Students for Action, had organized our walkout.
They made us hold our walkout in the auditorium. Our principal made us sign up for detentions. And then some people didn't want to do it because detentions mean they can't do their sports, and people were worried about their permanent record in getting into college. Our principal told us.
You can't walk out on the lawn in front of the school. That would be a safety hazard.
So our walkout had to be on our football field. If we're on the front lawn, we could have at least been seen. Our principal said.
It isn't appropriate for 5th graders to just walk out of school.
But we were asking for his support, not his permission.
The administration of our high school told us we would be suspended or fail our classes if we participated. We did it anyway. The adults around me, they always say, oh, I'm too young to know what I'm doing, but what I've accomplished in Chicago with my activism.
And Highland Park, New Jersey is known for being extremely woke and politically liberal, so our school was like.
We are going to make this walkout a school-sponsored thing.
But like, the whole point of the walkouts is to show the students acting on the current state of gun violence in schools, not to stroke the school's ego dick.
The morning of our walkout,
In Evanston, a group of teachers released a statement saying,
We know the administration said you'll be suspended and fail your classes, but we want you to know that we support you in your activism.
they said we know why you're doing this.
And we're gonna walk out with you.
By the third day of planning, our group in Virginia was really growing. We went over the expectations. This is not recess time. We're not doing this to get out of school. We're gonna be silent and we're not gonna chant because we want school to go on as normal. We were in the middle of planning when Corlin Arrington was shot in her high school in Birmingham. But
Black girls and women are shot, their names aren't remembered. Me and Carter came up with the idea to add a minute to our walkout so we can honor Cortland and show that she does matter.
My arts high school in Oregon was a safe haven. But there's these group of students, like, there have been swastikas drawn on things, and I try to stay away from them because I identify as Jewish and queer. So I knew. Our walkout. We're gonna have counter protesters.
The moment the walkout started, I just took a deep breath and said, here we go. In my hometown, Thousand Oaks, California, we have people who love their guns, and I respect all sides. I never speak for everyone, but me and my friends, we were marching with signs that said, we want books, not bullets.
As soon as we started, there were parents there, like, filming, like,
Look at our child participating in this political movement.
But that's not the point of this. The point, at least to me, is to show that students will not put up with the government not protecting kids.
I did the walkout like lots of kids here in Pennsylvania. My friend spoke and said,
My whole family has guns, but I was raised in how to use them. And in my family, it's a safe thing.
and then we read the names of every minor who died in the school shooting. Like 50 names. It went on and on and on.
I didn't do my school's walkout.
Freddie, also from Pennsylvania.
When you go to a high school the same size as Parkland and there are threats almost every day, you become scared. You will avoid pep rallies, eating lunch with your friends in the cafeteria, walking out of school with hundreds of your fellow classmates into an open field for 17 minutes.
By the day of the walkout, our principal was completely supportive. We laid down silently for 18 minutes. 1 minute for each Parkland victim, and 1 more minute for Cortland Arrington.
We walked out, well, into the auditorium for 17 minutes, and we read the names of the Parkland victims there.
Alyssa Al-Hadad, Scott Beagle, Martine Duque Anguiano,
Nicholas Warwick, Aaron Feist, Jamie Guttenberg.
And in the middle of our moments of silence, the assistant principal came in and started talking.
I am so inspired by your activism.
And then he realized that we were having moments of silence and he just talked during it. Like we're saying the names of these people, these victims, and he's just talking.
After the walkout, I was told by some that I didn't care because I didn't walk out. I do care, I just don't want to be a target.
We decided if anybody chooses not to participate, we're not going to give them a hard time. Because I go by, you don't have to agree with people, but you have to respect them.
We marched to our courthouse in Eugene, Oregon, and the counter protesters were there. A lot of them. And one of them gave this really condescending speech that was like, so how many of you have fired a gun?
We had pro-gun people come to our walkout.
In liberal Bellingham, Washington, we took a moment of silence and they were yelling.
I said to my group, I said, do not talk to the counter protesters. That is not what this is about. We read the names of the Parkland victims. I put my finger to my lips for a moment of silence. And then we marched back to school.
The walkout was empowering for a moment, but here in Pennsylvania, I don't think anything is going to change until someone's own child and the government is in danger. Until it shows up on their doorstep.
Our entire district in California received attention for the classes that we missed. But so what? I can't just cry in my bed and watch Parkland videos.
Parkland was that push that we needed. They took some of the power back, but there is room for more voices of color, especially with this issue. I wish it hadn't taken a call to action for March for Our Lives for me to realize how much power I actually have. Now I realize it. I organized our walkout. No one did that. I took that opportunity.
I've always been a very quiet kid, but creating Students for Action, it really put this inner spark in me. And then we had this crazy thought, like, what if we all went to DC to March for Our Lives? And our community did a GoFundMe so that all of us could go.
The fact that my group was 11 years old and that we added a minute to honor a Black teenager, that got us some attention. Now this created a video with me and Carter and it went viral. Then after that, I was invited to speak at the March for Our Lives.
After the walkout, I'm like, I'm not gonna stop just because I'm about to graduate. I have to do something right now. And the best way that I know how to respond is through art. So I went up to the administrator and I was like, listen, I really want to do a performance to raise money for March for Our Lives. It'll be very tasteful and I hope you're impressive about it.
Okay, we'll see you there.
It was amazing. People created dances and songs. There was a slam poet.
I remember watching the March for Our Lives rally in DC, and the speeches were powerful. You can find them on YouTube, but the mashup between Hamilton and Dear Evan Hansen, the way they use their art to communicate their message, it made me realize I could do something.
You don't have to be the loudest person in the room. Just pick up your pen or your guitar and get moving. I knew I was headed east for college, so I contacted March for Our Lives in New York and told them I had experience producing events. And this girl named Avalon Starosky Fenster called me back and said,
Great, we need a New York City event organizer. When can you get here?
In Dave Cullen's book, Parkland, he quotes March for Our Lives activist Delaney Tarr saying, "We know the reason that we're getting all this attention is because we're privileged white kids. So many Black and brown girls have experienced violence, but who do we actually see on TV? Naomi Wadler. It's the white kids who are making a difference and the white kids who are speaking out. Many Black and brown kids are saying the exact same thing but aren't getting any attention for it. So I think that's the media's problem. I think we can raise awareness and stop being so comfortable in the way that we look at things." Our leaders in Chicago saw a connection to Parkland. Chicago peace warrior, D'Angelo McDade. They reached out to March for Our Lives, and we got an invite to go to Florida. I got the call March 2nd, 2018. I called and texted my buddy Alex King.
I was on my way home on the bus in Chicago. Now, I don't know if you know, but in the wintertime, it is very, very cold. So I was on my way home and D'Angelo texted my phone.
Call me, now.
And I'm like, I'll call him when I get home. But then like 5 minutes later, he's calling me now. So I'm like, whoa, this gotta be serious. So I call him and we go by a lot of different church names. We got a lot of jokes. So I call him and he goes,
Hey, what up, Deacon?
"Good afternoon, Rev.
How would you like to go to Florida with me?
I'm looking outside the window, there's snow on the ground, and I'm like, are you serious?
Yeah.
Wait. Are we going for what I think we're going for?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay. All right. I was still excited though, because I was ready for the heat. That flight to Florida was actually my first time being on an airplane. So it was a lot of emotions going different ways. I kept asking questions like, okay, so how does this work? Like, do I put my seatbelt on like now or do I put it on later?
Can I go to the bathroom? Do I have to wait?
And when the plane took off, oh, I was so happy.
We still were laughing and joking around on the van ride, but then we saw the school.
No one had to say, let's give a moment of silence. Nobody talked. Spoke. After that, we went to the home of the lovely ex Gonzalez and met all of them.
Hey, Alex, so good to have you here.
We went swimming, we had pizza. I mean, even after all they had been through, they still welcomed us. Open arms.
For a minute though, we all start to share our trauma.
So with what we're doing in Chicago, we're trying to raise awareness on trauma education. For those of you who don't know, trauma is described as a deeply distressing or disturbing event. So everyone here has been affected by trauma. As for me, I've been shot at, I've had guns pulled on me.
In 2017, I was shot in my left leg. I was hanging out on the porch with my grandfather and some dude just opened fire. And to be clear, we don't have any drug dealers in our houses, gangs or anything. It's literally just old folks and children. We just want to do this work so no one ever has to feel this pain again. Y'all are working on principle number 4. What's that? Martin Luther King Jr.'s 6 principles of nonviolence. Number 4, suffering can educate and transform. Unearned suffering is redemptive and has tremendous education and transforming possibilities.
4 years before the walkouts and March for Our Lives, in Chicago, CPD officer Jason Van Dyke fatally shot 17-year-old Laquan McDonald.
It was October 20th, 2014. Camille Williams, 27 at the time. I remember hearing that there was a police-involved shooting and a person had a knife. Police said Laquan was coming toward them. Nicole Calloway.
William Calloway, activist in Columbia College, Chicago.
So that's like my brother. Like real life. Like he carried my mom's body, you know? Yeah, her casket. We're like brothers and sisters. He was like,
Hey, let's check out this autopsy report.
so Will showed me the autopsy. And that's the first we knew about 16 shots.
The police had not disclosed that Van Dyke shot Laquan 16 times, emptying his gun.
Man, I think I'm gonna go after the fight. You think we can get a hold of the tape?
Yeah. It was me who encouraged and counseled Will how to file to get the body cam footage released.
I didn't even know what a FOIA request was.
The first time he was denied. So that's why Brandon Smith was like,
Okay, if you get this tape, what are you gonna do with it? You're not a journalist?
So journalist Brandon Smith and I filed for the Freedom of Information Act to get the release of the video.
I am one who wasn't really documented in the fight for Laquan. Every court hearing on the releasing of the tape, I was present. And this whole time, we're still going to the Chicago Police Department trying to demand for Officer Dante Servin to be fired for Rakia Boyd's murder.
Dante Servin, a Chicago police detective who was off duty in March of 2012 when he shot and killed 22-year-old Rakia Boyd with an unregistered firearm. Servin fired over his shoulder from his car after telling Boyd and her 3 friends to quiet down. Servin insisted he felt threatened when Rakia Boyd's boyfriend raised a cell phone Servin thought was a gun.
All this time, we're still chanting,
Release the tape! Release the tape!
So next October comes and I said, all right, bro, we've got to start the campaign, okay? Me and Rakia's brother Martinez had a talk show called Taking Back Our Community to talk about what happened to Rakia, Laquan McDonald, and to talk about the justice system prosecutor, Anita Alvarez. Never a fan of me. So I said, I need us to really hype up this tape, okay? November 24th, we finally go before a judge, and I swore Chicago was going to be a new day. The city lawyers tried to file a motion for the non-release of the tape, but the judge said,
I was so tired of this. I'm tired of all these police shootings and people killing citizens and no punishment.
He said,
Motion denied. I rule for the tape to be released by November 27th.
he said, if not, we're going to hold y'all in contempt. We all hug each other, do a press conference, and the city's talking about now it's going to be a race one. They're like moms. We just want to know what happened. We didn't know if there were more officers involved. We didn't know if Jason Van Dyke was white or black. All we knew from the autopsy was he got shot 16 times. So the tape release is on a Tuesday night. I never forget Will says,
Hey, we gotta hit the streets as soon as the tape drops. Let's meet up at 4:30.
so we took out this brown envelope. The 5-minute footage of the shooting. And I had a DVD player in my car, so I put it in there. And we watched it. And we were just quiet.
Nah, sis, he gotta go to jail. Jason Van Dyke has got to go to jail.
Well, the night before the tape dropped, Anita Alvarez had filed for murder charges.
The moment the tape drops, we take to the street.
Paige May, Chicago activist and co-founder of Asada's Daughters.
We had put out a call. We made an event saying we are going to have this march on Roosevelt. The response when the tape was released, we have so many groups mobilizing and coming together. 16 shots and a cover-up.
The Laquan tape just took things to a whole new level. What was shown on this tape was absolutely despicable. We feel that the Chicago Police Department as a whole needs a culture change.
The tape makes it clear, the police narrative is not true. Laquan McDonald was walking away from police when Van Dyke emptied his gun. Protests continue into Thanksgiving and Black Friday.
16 shots and a cover-up. 16 shots and a cover-up. If we don't get it, shut it down. Where are the rich people? Magnificent Mile. Rahm Emanuel is losing control over the city in a way that gives us power. We control the city. You don't. If we close down North Michigan Avenue on Friday, on Monday, Police Superintendent Gary McCarthy will be gone. Because half of those people on North Michigan Avenue are friends of the mayor, and they all have his personal cell phone number. Hey, hey, ho, ho, Rahm Emanuel's got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho, Rahm Emanuel's got to go.
Protesters lined Michigan Avenue that Black Friday. This brought Reverend Jesse Jackson out. Jackson marched with MLK at Selma and has been a leader for civil rights ever since, but younger activists didn't want him taking the mic.
We don't need you to speak for us. There's a lot of older folks that think that young people should just do what they want them to do and are really only there to be tokens, right? That Black Friday, we let it be known. Young people are not just a symbol.
Paige May, among others, were arrested that night, but they got resolved.
Rahm Emanuel fired CPD Superintendent Gary McCarthy.
Then Anita Alvarez was voted out. And finally, Mayor Rahm Emanuel resigned before Officer Van Dyke's trial.
I didn't attend the trial. 3 years after Laquan was murdered. When that jury came back guilty on all counts for a possible total of 83 years,
But sentencing was yet to come.
so we're doing everything we can to inform the Chicago Police Department. The feds were called to review CPD and made a consent decree that there had to be reforms. I joined CPAC, Community Policing Advisory Council, but I'm somebody who just don't subscribe to respectful politics. I mean, you are dealing with someone who is unapologetically Black. I came into this work 15 loved ones murdered. So, are you guys gonna help us? Or are you guys gonna use us?
At the sentencing of Officer Van Dyke,
I knew he wasn't gonna get the whole 83 years or 80 years. Jason Van Dyke's pastor came over to us and said,
would you all like to pray with Jason Van Dyke?
we said we wanna pray that this man goes to jail. Jason Van Dyke's family got up there talking about,
Jason is not a racist. Jason Van Dyke was a good kid when he was born.
Well, like this man in his 40s.
the judge was like,
My findings are an appropriate sentence would be 81 months in Illinois Department of Corrections, 2 years mandatory incarceration, eligibility for parole at that time.
all I could do was sit on the bench. We were all crying. Myself, Will Calloway, Jesse Jackson's son, Jonathan, was just up there crying. The world, hearing that an officer just kept unloading a clip. The world seen a cover-up for a year and a half. The world seen a prosecutor not do her job, and this man is coming home in 2022? What the fuck do you mean, stay calm? I've had a lot of heartbreaks. A lot of heartbreaks. And now them heartbreaks not only come from losing people, but they come from elected officials that look like me. Because we are not gonna leave that out. Lori Lightfoot said violent crime is on a downward trajectory. Bullshit!
We've seen a 124% increase in gun homicides since Lightfoot took office.
Chicago remains on pace to have one of the deadliest years since the 1990s.
Over the pandemic alone, thousands of people were shot. Thousands. How many of them did you hear about?
Hey, I'm Deshawn Gator. I'm 15. My family and I just moved to Lawndale, and I'm already involved in gun violence activism. I'm hanging out on my porch,
It was May 21st.
and I had a great day. Atu says it's gonna help me be a rapper.
I'm just chilling right now.
Hold on. 2 guys are on my lawn holding.
Deshawn, that's throbbing. I'm going down. He was one of 54 people shot in Chicago that weekend.
October 2020, traffic stop.
I'm Darren Green Jr. I got 2 kids in the back seat. In
In
a
a
flash,
flash.
I'm shot in the head while complying in front of my family, my 8-year-old.
Because their headlights weren't on.
Your job is to protect us. Now I'll never meet my son.
My name's Adam. Adam Toledo.
I'm 13 years old.
You know what they say. It
takes
takes a
a
village. A little village. March 29. I didn't know what I'd gotten myself into. My hands were in the air.
My soul soon after.
I'm Cheryl Schreifer. My husband Pat thought I had COVID, so he shot me.
Then I shot myself.
On April 1st of all days.
Autopsy results negative for COVID-19.
So much for April.
Cheryl, I'm John. My wife did the same.
Murdered by the love of my life.
Hey, I'm Marcellus Stinnett.
19. Driving through Waukegan.
With my girl. Oh gosh, she made it out alive.
The day was October 20th.
They said we had a gun. I think we know if we had a gun. He shot us where we sat. I can't help her. I can't open my eyes. I can't breathe.
My son, stay with me.
Anthony
Alvarez.
Alvarez. It's 2021. I'm 22 years young.
I'm a father too.
A father in a filicidal city. I don't know why they were chasing me. I was just walking. I'm not the enemy. I can't die yet. But before I get to the house, the Lord brings me home.
My little girl was 7 years old. I put her in the backseat, and that's the last time I saw her alive.
This isn't a Claire's.
If I wanted her peers, I would have taken her there. Her name was Serenity Broughton. And let's not forget about Tiana Alexander.
And Selena Reyes Hernandez. I deserve to live past 37. Fuck it. I deserve to live. Quit shooting trans people.
Like we're cousins.
My name is Giovanni Azuaga.
24, a father.
After the Puerto Rican People's Parade, I was attacked, shot dead at point blank on West Division. I did nothing now. My memorial says,
Happy Father's Day. Rest in peace, Gio.
The 3 of us never knew each other, but I, Aisha Johnson, adore women.
Von Iran, an exchange student.
AJ Faulkner, I was just shopping.
3 victims of a shooting rampage that stretched across the city.
Life's full of little surprises.
Anthony Ballard.
Miku Mercante.
Friday the 13th.
Thanks, America the Beautiful. Now I'm a corpse on the street.
On my porch.
That's 16 shots so far. We can go on.
S.J. Key.
Johnny Williams.
Tiara Banks.
Theodore Smith.
I was only 46.
25.
24.
I had so much more time. I had a right to that time. Give me my time back.
I'm Joseph Bull.
My own godbrother, Lil Joe.
12 months ago, my cousin shot me in the head over a damn girl.
I'm so sorry we never reconnected.
These are only some of the people whose names were released to the press.
You can't imagine how many more headlines there are.
On Sunday, someone threw a bridge shot. Was driving on the
In 2020,
4,135 Chicagoans were shot.
That's 11 bullets every day.
What's so hard to understand about hands up?
Don't shoot.
Hands down.
Don't shoot.
Wake up.
Don't shoot.
It's time.
Don't shoot. You just do a damn thing about it.
or Marcellus.
Poor Adam.
Or Lil Joe.
You're the one in power. Please let my grandbabies rest
On the porch. In peace.
Selena Reyes Hernandez, who was just mentioned. Her boyfriend murdered her after she came out to him with twins. I wanted to tell each of you tonight about Chicago's Brave Space Alliance, a Black-led, trans-led LGBTQ center on the South Side that provides support, education, affirming services, mutual aid, resources. This is Alexis. Just 1 year after they led their high school walkouts in Oregon. I thought gun violence prevention was a really solvable thing. You know, I thought lawmakers would listen, so now I'm pretty cynical as far as how much the establishment actually cares. I've been in a stage of a lot of realization, a lot of transition, and a lot of reflection. I realized I'm non-binary trans, so that's led to me getting very involved in trans rights and advocating. There's this new push in my community that is basically existing as a queer person, being a living example, being a support system for other queer people. That when you're not marching in the streets, there is still a way to sort of have covert resistance. Just being visible, helping others who aren't feeling strong enough to be visible. You can live and be openly queer and be openly trans and survive and do okay. It's a form of activism because it changes the culture and it changes what's normalized and it empowers queer youth. So that has been my activism. You know, it's not for the assholes. It's for other people who are Jewish, other queer people, people of color. That's what I'm doing this for, because if your activism isn't intersectional, it is nothing.
My name is Avalon Swarovski-Fenster. I'm 16 years old and I'm the co-founder of March for Our Lives Long Island.
Avalon is the one who appointed Kylie New York City event coordinator.
My story is a story of survival, about how, against all odds, I exist. My existence as a first-generation Jewish American girl until now has been a testament to the survival of my family. Yet, after all this survival, I could be killed tomorrow because lawmakers don't feel like doing their job to protect me. My existence from today on will be a testament to my government. A government that doesn't seem to care about immigrants, women, people of color, about diverse religious backgrounds, queer people, poor people, children. I am traumatized. I am scared and I am traumatized. And I'm so sick of all these articles coming out questioning why youth today are so anxious and depressed. This is why. Our government has failed us.
Not 6 months after I started with March for Our Lives in New York, there was a shooting in my hometown, Thousand Oaks, California, at the Borderline Bar and Grill.
The third safest city in America.
A few days later, I spoke at a Gays Against Guns rally in Times Square. And as a person of Jewish heritage, I was grateful to have a rabbi there to mourn.
Yikadal, Shemei Rabbah. Gomad the Torah Shurutem, Diamrit Mafute, Sayechon, Diomechon, Saye the Kro Beit Yisrael.
I'm Life and I go to Columbia College, Chicago. In 2018, 8 months after the shooting in Parkland, Florida, the Tree of Life Synagogue mass shooting took place in Pittsburgh. This is something I wrote then. Still perfect. I wasn't going to speak on this because I wasn't really sure if I had the right to. I'm still Jewish. And there's still people out there that would hate me for that. point pretending I've ever been targeted for being Jewish because I haven't, but my grandparents were, my mom was. I hate that my first reaction upon hearing that the shooting occurred at the Tree of Life in Pittsburgh wasn't shock or sadness, it was again. I am a student, and guns kill students all the time. I am a woman, and guns kill women all the time. I am Black, and guns kill Black people all the time. I am Jewish, and guns kill Jews all the time. I don't know much Hebrew, aside from the Hanukkah blessings and the mourner's Kaddish. Of the little I was taught, I learned how to lay someone to rest. Think of that way.
Yikadal, Shemay Rabbah. Gomad Devorah Futet, the Amri Mofutet. Tayakum.
I'm here for one very simple reason. I don't want to see this ever happen again. Because I'm a survivor. I lived through the assault at Marjorie Stoneman's Douglas High School.
This is Kaya Kesha from Parkland, Florida.
I've had meetings at the White House and at Capitol Hill, and we agree. A ban of assault weapons will not solve this. Restrictions on high-capacity magazines will not solve this issue. We simply need better enforcement of regulations that are currently in law. I mean, there were so many multi-layered failures at Parkland. The FBI failed, our sheriff failed, but now Florida, in some counties, has a law that allows teachers to become armed, to acquire the training to protect our schools. Because the only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun.
At the Borderline Bar and Grill, one of the victims was a police sergeant.
Heidi, Thousand Oaks, California.
He died from friendly fire. Police came in, saw the sergeant's weapon drawn, and shot him. And if I'm not mistaken, some of the other victims at the bar did concealed carry, so this just made me think, why didn't a good guy with the gun beat a bad guy with the gun? Why did a good guy have to get shot and killed?
Vandyke's interesting. Jesse Jackson himself said to us, don't let them see you defeated. So, we kept at it. We got the Peace Book ordinance with Good Kids, Mad City, still promoting it, trying to get mental health centers built.
Mayor Rahm Emanuel closed schools and mental health centers, citing budget constraints. And then proposed building a $95 million cop academy.
Assata's Daughters, Black Lives Matter, the People's Response Team, For the People Artists Collective, and other grassroots groups created #NoCopAcademy. They protested and campaigned for that $95 million to fund communities, not police.
Good Kids Mad City's Peace Book ordinance also calls for a restorative justice-centered approach. The Peace Book is the opposite of the city of Chicago's gang database, the Gang Book.
I have spoken out at the mayor's office to push the Peace Book, to push on the erasing of the gang database. 95% of the Gang Book is filled with Black and Latinx people. There are 9-year-olds in that database, and you don't even need to get arrested. You don't need to be put on trial. You don't need anything to get put in this database. If they dress like a gangbanger, automatically, they are one. There's a lot of violence prevention guys, old gangbangers, who are now trying to get a job, a real job. But they can't because of things like the gang database. The Peace Book ordinance is to build jobs for our kids, to give them trauma support, food, things they need to live.
Over the years, several policing task forces were attempted.
ECPS, Empowering Communities for Public Safety, or the People's Ordinance, is the compromise that emerges. A broad coalition comes together.
Pleasure that I come before you today to celebrate the union of GABA and CPAC. This is the People's Bill, and we are merely here doing the people's will. And the time is now to implement transformative change in police accountability. We have seen with our very eyes how it works without it. Laquan McDonald, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Miss Anjanette Young, who we are so grateful is alive today to tell her story. It is time for the people to have a voice in civilian oversight. It is imperative that the mayor and our colleagues join us in this effort. Thank you.
ECPS is the most transformative police oversight bill in the country.
After months of actions, coalition building, and rewrites, ECPS passed City Council on July 21st, 2021.
So yeah, when they passed it, I did feel a bit of victory, because finally, I spoke out to my community and I find them getting on board, but it doesn't mean they're gonna comply with me. And just because this passed does not mean my work is finished. I am not done.
I got my city on the front foot. When everybody made a rapper jump ship. I guess that's why they call it where I stay.
There's always a lot of people at the annual Peace March in Chicago.
Alex King.
Now, usually it's a more serious, like calm vibe, but in 2018, it kicked off the Road to Change bus tour.
March for Our Lives activists planned an ambitious bus tour before the 2018 midterm elections. They started in Chicago.
The vibe was different. There was a lot of energy. Happy.
This time, Parkland came to Chicago.
Jennifer Hudson and Chance the Rapper were there.
We were dancing with Jennifer Hudson.
Jackie Gordon, March for Our Lives.
We'd be walking and we'd see people in their apartments like looking down at us and they'd be like, oh, I've gotta join this. They put their arm around me, Alex and we'd be walking so sweaty. We marched like 4 miles. And this is only the first day of the Road to Change. We were headed to towns where the NRA has a stranglehold on politicians. Alex, come with us.
I'm like, travel the country, go to different places I've never seen before. When does it start?
Tomorrow.
So I'm packing my bags and I say to my mom, so here's the thing. Going on tour, probably going for about like a month or 2, starting tomorrow. Now, I'm only a senior in high school, so when I tell you she stopped me before I could step foot out the room, like, what are you talking about? As an activist, being a part of this tour, give me more voice.
Be safe.
She dropped me off the next day.
Right now, we have about 25 students signed up, but more come from other communities that come from Parkland.
It's hard not to make friends when you're on a bus 7 days a week. I mean, we were picking up information, statistics, facts about each city's gun restrictions, laws, candidates, and we're still trying to be kids. Still trying to have our fun.
Before the 2018 midterms, the Road to Change bus tour helped enroll 100,000 new voters. And they helped flip congressional seats to gun sense candidates.
Yeah.
They went to Missouri, Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa,
Wisconsin, Minnesota, North Dakota, Texas. In Dallas, a bunch of protesters showed up to one of our events with like 2 ARs, handguns strapped to their belt, a knife. Like, are you trying to prove a point because you look dumb?
It was scary sometimes. Because you wouldn't expect a bus full of kids to be getting death threats, especially when they're just trying to end gun violence. Yeah, we upset a lot of people, but we also connected with a lot of people.
One of the most interesting things I've seen throughout all of these conversations
David Hogg, March for Our Lives.
is on the conservative side, it's always bad apples and mental health, and on the liberal side, it's always gun control. But what neither side is really addressing is violence interruption programs, like they have in Chicago with the Peace Warriors. Do you remember Edna Chavez at the march? She spoke about the need for restorative justice.
Hola, buenas tardes. Chavez, and I am from South Los Angeles, California, el sur de Los Angeles. I am a youth leader. I am a survivor. At Community Coalition, we organize high school students to develop their leadership skills in order to push for educational justice in our communities.
My brother, he was in high school when he passed away. Ricardo was his name. Can you say it with me, Ricardo? I lost more than my brother that day. I also lost myself to that trauma, to that anxiety. If the bullet doesn't kill us, that trauma and that anxiety will. Our South LA schools have their own police. Instead, we need departments specializing in restorative justice. Our new teachers do not work. Zero tolerance policies do not work. More metal detectors do not work. They make us feel like criminals. Instead, fund mentorship programs, mental health resources. My brother and many others would have benefited from this.
But the peace warriors, we train and pay youth to be violent interruptions. So why is it more publicly popular amongst American voters to implement more law enforcement than to implement these way cheaper systems that prevent gun violence?
Guten Nachmittag, Leute. Ich bin Jillian und ich bin ein Teil des Ensembles.
This is our castmate Jillian. And she speaks German.
Es gab 2 Attentate mit Schusswaffen auf deutsche Schulen in den letzten 20 Jahren. In 2002 und in 2009.
In the past 20 years, there have been 2 school shootings in Germany. One in 2002 and one in 2009.
Und es gab zusammen 31 Todesopfer.
The shootings left 31 victims dead.
Danach den Attentaten haben die deutschen Gesetzgeber scharfe Waffengesetze verabschiedet, welche den Besitz von Schusswaffen stark kontrolliert und einschränkt.
After those shootings, German lawmakers implemented harsh rules for gun legislation and gun ownership.
Yeah, and then anyone younger than 25 has to pass a psychiatric exam before they can apply for a gun license. Then they have to wait for about a year, pass some more tests, and have a pretty damn good reason for why they want to own a gun. Die deutsche Regierung stellt Gesundheit und Sicherheit in den Vordergrund.
Germany put the health and safety of its citizens first.
Also, die Leute werden wahrscheinlich wie folgt argumentieren.
People are probably going to say,
Well, Germany is much smaller, and the Second Amendment states we have a right to own guns. It's impossible that our rights are at stake.
Nein, das ist nicht unmöglich, das ist komplett scheiße.
That's complete bullshit.
My brother, who is a person of color like me, is currently studying in Hamburg. He says that he feels much safer there. I mean, he can stay out late at night, use public transportation with no problem. He doesn't have to worry about gun violence. Also, eine Botschaft an unsere Lieblingspolitiker da draußen.
So, a message to our lovely politicians.
Warum können wir nicht zusammenarbeiten, um diese Schusswaffengewalt zu bekämpfen und beenden?
Why can't we work together to end this senseless violence?
Some activists feel that policing can never be uncoupled from its racist, white supremacist origins. Google it. That only defunding or abolishing the police will stop murders like Laquan McDonald's. Transformative justice activist Mariam Kaba of Project 9.
Instead of struggling to take over and redirect the master school, we call for investing the resources now poured into policing directly into community initiatives, whose core missions are about helping, healing, and sustaining people, not controlling them.
On the bystander video of George Floyd, hit social media, begging and telling the cops that he couldn't breathe. We had many protests over that summer. And a moment that impacted me the most is that Lori Lightfoot not only ordered, but let these cops brutally beat us. We were on our knees with our hands up, screaming and chanting. It's what we always say every time we're near a protest. Hands up, don't shoot! Hands up, don't shoot. So when we're doing that, when we're on our knees with our hands up, that's when the cops just look at us and start pepper spraying us.
We were peaceful.
Well, they were in riot gear.
We were peaceful.
Well, they were shooting rubber bullets at us. We were peaceful while they were brutally beating us with their batons. They were pepper spraying us because we wanted to understand why they keep killing us, why they keep seeing us as a threat. Being at these protests and seeing the body language that these cops enact with us is a moment I will never forget, because now we understand exactly how they feel.
I really think that we should get rid of a lot of these things. Like, we're in a place right now where no one in this country thinks we can just start over.
Annabelle, Chicagoland activist and abolitionist.
Like, we're so far in our economy and business that no one thinks we can just have a fresh start.
I don't think we should live in a society where police exist.
Isaiah, they organized the Aventoletto Vigil.
It's the system of the police, it's not an individual cop. They try to say, oh, it's a bad apple, because they want you to think it's just one person. The system at large needs to change or be abolished. The system is continuously divesting from the things that actually prevent crime. Social welfare and education. If you aren't educated, you can't get a good job, right? Basic health care, a living wage to provide for your family. And that's the cycle. When you see a impoverished neighborhood, because the community, the state isn't investing into it.
Oppression is a word that I know too well.
This is Lauren Elise.
It's my friend that forced its way into my life. I couldn't get rid of it, so I found a way to make use of the cards I've been dealt. This birthmark is as distinct as day and night, or as camouflaged as salt and sugar. Some days, oppression looms over me, and I have no choice but to feel this pain. When I dance, I feel better. I can dance this pain away, dance until I can't feel my body, feel my pain, feel me, until I can't feel my oppression. How does it feel to be colored me? It's fun, a little dangerous, but an illusion nonetheless. My blackness is a playhouse. At first, it's exciting because you instantly realize that your life is surrounded by the color of your skin. The mirrors are innocent. I wish so badly to stop looking at myself. I get it. I'm black. I got it. I see many things in this mirror. My flaws, the wide ways that the gel clamped me down, my beauty, perfect arched eyebrows, long eyelashes, perfect smile, yes. I'm blinded by the magnitude of how human I am. And that scares me. But don't confuse yourself. My oppression isn't sadness. I know joy. I am joy. Joy lives within my soul. I take pride in my skin, hair, and sass. I strut my stuff knowing that I wouldn't want to be no other way. My blackness is the wide awake that can't lay down. No matter how much gel you put into my hair, my blackness is the last one standing. You can't conform me to your standard of perfection. My blackness is perfect. Why would you want me any other way? And how could you deny yourself the pleasure of my company? It's beyond me. My blackness is carefree and knows no limits. There are no cages around my joy. I dance in the face of oppression, and I smile large in the faces of those who think oppression takes hold of my soul.
Empowered and unapologetic young people always lead revolutions like this one. From civil rights to the Arab Spring. We're now in the bloom of the newest movement, one that fights for a state where we don't have police be our every first responder. The more radical we get with it, the safer our future becomes.
In Chicago's Douglas Park, there's Rakia's tree, meant to honor Rakia Boyd.
Many of the activists that we mentioned tonight meet at Rakia's tree to grieve lives lost to gun violence, to come together to plan action. But much like the Arab Spring, their action is only as effective as our support of them.
Like Raina said, we live in a war zone, but the internet is one of our most powerful forces. So out in the lobby, we have QR codes with information on many of the organizations we mentioned tonight.
Like Brave Space Alliance,
Good Kids, Mad City.
Black Lives Matter, Peace Warriors, Project Naya.
It's all on display. So scan the QR codes, go follow them, go to the events. Please, please, please get involved.
Because the beloved community is the framework for the future. And that means you. That means all of us. Y'all ready?
Yes.
Here we go. One,